Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to talk about Google's $5 billion fine. We're going to talk about Apple Keyboard Gate. We're going to talk about Apple Throttle Gate and a whole lot more. So go ahead and stick around. Okay, greetings Earthlings. Welcome back to episode 128 of the BSP. My name is Bandrew, and when I says down below, timestamp so you can skip around and listen to whatever you want. I'm not the boss of you. Do whatever the heck you want. But if you got 20 to 30 minutes or maybe even more, I'd suggest listening to the entire episode of the podcast. Two personal things up top. First, I wanted to go ahead and say thank you again to everybody who has subscribed to the Podcastage channel. We just reached 70,000 subscribers, which is just mind-boggling to me. And I am just so incredibly grateful. And I wanted to thank everybody again for subscribing and coming along with me and allowing me to experiment with what kind of content I upload here. I think I pointed that out a couple weeks ago. It's very rare to have a channel where people don't all abandon ship if you upload something different. And being that I mainly just uploaded microphone reviews, the fact that people didn't jump ship when I started uploading a couple of interviews once a month, doing some FAQs, some Q&As, and then now uploading the podcast here, I was shocked that people didn't jump ship, so thank you again for that. Secondly, I wanted to apologize for last week's episode of the podcast, and in particular the video of the podcast, because for the first 15 minutes or 17 minutes, my GoPro was not running, so I did not have a secondary angle to switch to every 15 seconds or so, which is a very useful way to hide edit points in a video podcast. Now, last week was higher in terms of edit points because I was very, very hungry, and in order to curb that hunger, I decided to eat a few crackers before I started podcasting. So the entire time I was salivating and I was swallowing a lot. There was just way too many mouth noises, and I wanted to edit all of that out. Like after every couple of sentences, I would take a second, I would swallow all the saliva, and then I would edit that point out. So I apologize for all of the issues there. I believe we fixed it up this week. That camera is definitely recording. That camera is definitely recording. And the audio is definitely recording. So we are in the clear. Now let's jump right into the big ticket item. Google is being fined $5 billion for breaking antitrust laws in the EU. So per TheVerge.com, the European Commission fined Google because they say that they abused their market dominance in Android in three key areas. They say that they bundled their search engine and Chrome apps in the operating system. They blocked phone makers from creating devices that run forked versions of Android, and they made payments to certain large manufacturers and mobile network operators to exclusively bundle the Google search app. Now, the commission came out with a couple of things that Google has to stop doing in order to avoid accruing any additional fines. And that would be they need to stop forcing manufacturers to pre-install Chrome and Google Search in order to offer the Google Play Store on handsets. And they need to stop preventing phone makers from using forked versions of Android. So let me elaborate a little bit more on that. So in order for any device manufacturer to have the Google Play Store available on their device, they need to have Google Chrome and they need to have the Google Search app installed on that device. And that is why I believe the Amazon devices, the Fire tablet, all that stuff doesn't have the Google Play Store, because Amazon didn't want to go ahead and follow those rules, because Amazon wants you to use their own app store. And that is a manufacturer's right to have their own app store. If you want to use the Google Play Store, though, they do have a couple of requirements. You need to have Google Chrome. You need to have the Google Search app. As far as forking, I am not completely well-versed on this, so I'm sure people will correct me, but my understanding of it is with the Android open source project, I think that's what it is, you download the source code, and then you go ahead and upload your altered code back to the AOSP, which makes perfect sense. It's an open source project. If you are going ahead and using that open source project, I believe that code does need to stay open source. You can't download it and then turn it into your own operating system, which is what a forked version would be. You download the Android open source code, and then you market it as your own operating system, which, you know what, that does seem shady. So I don't know why they're saying stop doing that, but I'm sure people will go ahead and correct me. So maybe I'm a complete idiot here, but I don't understand this. Maybe somebody can explain this to me also in the comments down below. If Google is saying, hey, we've developed this awesome operating system and you can totally use it for free, but if you want the full benefits of it, you're going to have to include our browser and our search engine. That will essentially be the compensation that you give us. What's wrong with that? I don't understand what's wrong with that approach. That seems perfectly within Google's rights. Nobody is forcing these companies to use Android. If you don't like the rules, use a different operating system. If you don't like the rules, go ahead and build your own operating system. I don't understand how it can be illegal for a company saying, hey, we developed this for free. You can go ahead and use it for free, but you have to follow a couple rules that we have to access it. What's wrong? I don't get it. And that is exactly what Purism is doing with their Librem 5 phone, which should be coming out in 2019. They don't like all the rules and all the tracking that Google does. So they said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and get some other open source code. I think they're using Linux. And we're going to make our own phone operating system that doesn't do all the tracking. We don't have to include any of these apps to meet Google's requirements. And it's going to be a much more, it's much different. It's going to be a much different experience, but they aren't kowtowing or they're not bowing down to Google. They're doing what they want, and they're not suing Google. They're not fining Google. So I don't understand it. Now, I had to look this part up because I have heard in the past that Android is open source. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's part of it. Maybe it is open source code. And then Google is saying, hey, we're going to put our little spin on it and then go ahead and release it. And you have to abide by our rules. And I would understand the pushback there if it was open source, not developed by Google. But according to the Android Wikipedia page, Android is developed by Google until the latest changes and updates are ready to be released, at which point the source code is made available to the Android open source project. So Google is still the one developing the operating system, and then they are just releasing the open source code or releasing the code as open source for any developer or any handset manufacturer to build on top of. So I gave this a little bit of thought and I came up with a little story to kind of illustrate how I'm interpreting this. Now, I could be completely wrong, and I'm sure people will let me know if I'm completely wrong. So here it is. It would be similar if someone were to say, hey, I'll let you go ahead and play in my sandbox, and this shovel will always be right here. This shovel, you can't throw it away. It has to stay right here. You can definitely bring your own shovel. Bring your own shovel. Feel free to do that. I'm not going to stop you. But this one has to be included in this sandbox. And guess what? It is a pretty awesome shovel. Side note, this shovel will go ahead and track everything about you and collect a creepy amount of data about you, but this shovel is really good at digging. It does its job really dang well. So that's how I interpret it, and I don't understand. If Google is making this and giving it away for free, do they not also have the right to say, well, if you want to use it for free and get the full benefit, all the add-ons, you have to include a couple things. You have to follow a couple rules. What's wrong with that? Somebody, please let me know in the comments, because maybe I just don't understand the law, or maybe the law is just wrong. I'm going to go ahead and say it's not wrong because I'm just a dopey dude who lives in the United States. I'm not in the EU, so I don't understand your laws. Help me out here. Help me understand. Okay, let's jump to YouTube news, which is kind of Google news. And it's just YouTube nonsense. We're going to talk briefly about FouseyTube. So FouseyTube made a concert event that ended in a bomb threat. That sucks. It sucks. But there was speculation that Drake would be there and a bunch of big artists would show up and it would be this big event selling out the Greek Theater. I mean, good for you. It does seem like the event did go well until somebody called in a bomb threat. It wasn't completely sold out. It was another free ticket kind of thing. Cool. I'm glad people are doing this, but let me elaborate more on this story. So on the Drama Alert channel, there was a series of videos documenting the entire thing. Now, I'll admit, I didn't watch all the videos. I couldn't stomach it. The entire thing just reeked of premeditation to me and maybe a bit of exploitation of someone who is clearly unstable. So that's all I'm going to say there. I'm not going to go deeper. I'm not going to get into the YouTube drama. I'm just going to say, hey, there was a YouTuber who tried to do a concert thing. It looked like it was going well. Someone called a bomb threat. And then there's another YouTuber who I interpret it as maybe exploiting this person, or maybe the entire thing is a ruse to I guess, stir up a bunch of drama and get all the channels involved, more views. That's how I'm taking it. I guess that could have been a conspiracy corner, but that's not worth it. This whole YouTube drama thing, not worth it. Second thing, family of 5 banned. So there was a channel last year titled Daddy of 5 that got a lot of heat, and it's because they were pulling pranks on their kids that were so rough and over the top that it was considered to be child neglect. And they lost custody of 2 of their 5 kids. So it was a rough drama, rough instance, a rough court battle. I'm not becoming a dog. I'm not rough. It was a bad situation, and now the channel has been completely removed per YouTube's guidelines. That's all I'm gonna say. Glad the channel is gone, because if you are abusing your kids and exploiting them for views, get out of here. You're not welcome. You freaking dope. Okay, let's jump to Apple news. This is gonna make a lot of people happy, or not. Maybe not. It may lead to people getting angry at me. Oh, you're such an Apple sheep. So first thing, Apple trying to fix the keyboard failure. So when the 2018 MacBook Pros got released, Apple announced that they had a Generation 3 Butterfly keyboard that they marketed as just being quieter. They didn't say anything about the big keyboard gate, is what a bunch of people are calling it, where if dust gets in your keyboard, it completely dies, and then it costs $700 to replace it, all that stuff. So when these came out, iFixit tore down the new keyboard and found a silicone membrane surrounding each of the switches, each of the keys. Now, every single tech YouTuber out there and tech journalist out there has been speculating that this is actually in order to keep out dust from the switch, and that the quieter thing is just a happy accident, and it was a way for Apple to market a new keyboard and fix the issue without saying, hey, we were wrong, we broke it, it was a bad design, but we fixed it. Now, additionally, all these tech folks are saying that the reason they didn't come out and say we added something to try and fix the issue with dust is because they didn't want to admit that they messed up. And yeah, duh. Apple is they have lawsuits going on regarding dust getting into keyboards and breaking. So by admitting anything along those lines, they would lose the lawsuit and have to pay lots of money. So of course they're not going to come out and say, hey, you know that thing we're being sued for? Yeah, we're guilty. We're guilty. We resolved it now, but we're guilty. They're not going to do that. That's so dumb. They're a corporation that is publicly traded. And what that means is that, like nearly all other publicly traded companies, they are greedy, and so are their shareholders. They all want that stock price to continually go up. And when you lose a lawsuit, you have to pay a bunch of money, and your stock price may likely go down. So of course they're not going to admit that they're wrong. I can't believe it. Hey, we're guilty in this class action lawsuit. Here's a check for millions of dollars. Of course they're not going to do that. What are you thinking? Oh my God, I can't believe it. But that's not the end of the story. An internal document did leak from Apple, which does admit that the protective membranes is there to protect the switch from getting clogged up with dust. So you know what? There's a little bit of peace for everybody wanting Apple to admit that they were wrong. And the last thing I'll say here is that yes, it does suck when your Gen 1 or Gen 2 Butterfly keyboard dies and you have to go and get it replaced for free, that they will just replace it with another Gen 1 or Gen 2 keyboard. They're not going to upgrade to the Gen 3. So you're going to end up having the exact same issue over and over again. And I do wish that Apple would come out and say, hey, we were wrong. But being that they are currently going through litigation, it makes 100% sense why they are not admitting that. Come on, guys. What do you expect from them? Next, we got Apple is going to store Chinese iCloud data on state-run servers. So the iCloud data will be stored by GCBDs on state-run telecom servers. So GCBDs, whatever it is Jeju Cloud Big Data, something like that. So not only is the data for iCloud going to be stored on state-run servers, but encryption keys are also going to be stored in China as well. And that really is the entire story. There's no guarantee that if the Chinese government wanted to access this data that they would be able to, but it is a little bit concerning. And to be fair, if Apple started storing US-based iCloud information on US-owned state servers, I would be just as concerned. I don't like the idea of personal information like that being stored on state-run servers, no matter what the country. That just makes it very scary and very concerning, where if they wanted to, maybe they have tools that could break certain kinds of encryption. We don't know. I don't know much about the actual process of encryption, but what if? It's concerning once a state server is storing your very personal and private and sensitive information. And that is pretty much it. Oh, I'll go ahead and mention this. This was announced in January. And if you live in China, apparently you can delete your iCloud account, or you can select a different country as the host of your data, so it wouldn't be stored on a Chinese state-owned server. And if you do plan to do the latter, where you store it in a different country, The Verge does recommend that you first delete your original iCloud account so that information is completely wiped, and then set up a new account with that different country to host your data. That way your information isn't stored in some backup of a server. It is just retroactively deleted. Now, the next Apple story, Core i9 MacBook throttling, the Throttle Gate. So first up, I'm going to link 2 videos in the show notes and description. One is from Dave2D, who kind of broke this story. And then another one is from Jonathan Morrison, where he does a whole bunch of testing of the Core i9 and Core i7 Mac, and it is very, very useful and very, very thorough. So Dave2D released a video demonstrating that the thermal solution on the Core i9 MacBook Pro is just not optimized, and you get throttled significantly. He was saying that you can't even get the base clock speed in this MacBook unless you put the MacBook in a freezer. Now, I have not used any of these new MacBook Pros, and I'm not going to. But Jonathan Morrison went ahead and released a video that I think is a great video, where he tests out the Core i9 with a bunch of different pieces of software, as well as a bunch of different footage that's encoded from different cameras. He uses an RE something, he does a Red RAW, he does an A7S III, Canon C200, all sorts of different cameras with different codecs. And the results are pretty cool. So his conclusion shows that, yeah, if you're running a Red RAW footage into Adobe Premiere Pro, you're going to be in trouble, because that is just not optimized for a Mac computer. But if you were to run the same tests running through Final Cut Pro, you are going to get much better results, because Final Cut Pro is really well optimized to I guess, use all the resources available on Apple and on the Mac, and it does a really, really good job. Additionally, I mean, you could go ahead and go with DaVinci Resolve, because that is even exponentially better. Maybe not exponentially, but it is significantly more optimized for Mac computers than Adobe Premiere is. So in Jonathan's video, he says, this really, in this test case, isn't the fault of Apple. He did admit, the thermal solution does suck, but the real issue is Adobe not optimizing their software properly for use on Mac computers, because he tested it in the same footage, same encoding, same everything through Final Cut and DaVinci Resolve and got significantly better results. So it really came down to an issue with the optimization of Adobe. And I will go ahead and suggest checking out both Dave2D and Jonathan Morrison's video, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. Is Apple just in the wrong? Are they just completely screwing you? Is Apple scamming you by including this Core i9, or is just Adobe not properly optimizing their video or their software for Mac computers? Next, we got Prime Day disaster. So Amazon has come up with some kind of new shopping day titled Amazon Prime Day, where you can get a bunch of junk that you don't need just for a lot cheaper than you normally would be able to get it. And that's the whole motivating factor for buying it, because you're getting a good deal. So they launched this event at 3 p.m. EST, and within a few minutes, the entire site went down, and it was a disaster. I was following their Twitter page, and people were raging on them. They were so pissed off. And I checked a couple of times within the first hour, and it just was still down. And then when I finally got it to work, I looked at all the deals, and nothing really seemed interesting, just like the last year. You could get a battery bank for $5 off, or you could get one of the thousands of options for Bluetooth headphones for probably a nickel. There's always so many Bluetooth headphones and so many Bluetooth speakers. And I just wanted to share this because I found it funny that when this event launched, their entire site went down. I think it was down for maybe 3-4 hours. And I think it was mainly in the US. So only the US you couldn't go ahead and get anything. But with this entire event, after the second year of looking through all the deals, I've just come to realize that the huge majority of stuff that is discounted is just trash that companies are hoping you will buy, because when it comes down to it, how could you possibly turn down a deal to buy a terrible sounding Bluetooth speaker for $10 when it's normally $25? You're saving money. You have to buy that, right? Wrong. You don't have to buy it, guys. You're not saving money when you buy a terrible sounding speaker for $10 just because it normally costs $25. You're not saving $15. You're just throwing $10 in the trash as opposed to $25. I hate that mentality. Oh, it's on sale, so I'm saving money. No, you're not. You're still buying a piece of junk that you're going to throw away in 3 months. You're just paying less money for it. You're throwing less money in the trash as you would if you bought it at full price. I just can't stand that mentality. So that's all I got to say there. I will go ahead and say all the issues with Amazon Prime, all the junk that was there didn't stop it from breaking records and becoming, Amazon's biggest shopping event to date. 100 million products were sold, and small and medium-sized businesses exceeded $1 billion in sales. Oh my God. So it was a big sales day. It was a big success, even though the site was down for 4 hours or something. I guess people they haven't gotten to that point where they realize a $10 Bluetooth speaker that sounds like garbage isn't as good of a deal as you think it is. It's not a good deal. It's a piece of junk. Don't buy it. So there we go. Now let's jump to something a little bit lighter. Let's just jump to what she had to say. There was a lot of good comments and a lot of good feedback this last week. So we got 5 of them this week. So this is going to be fun. The first comment comes from Avocado Atrocity. He says, this is in regards to me making fun of people saying, you could buy a PC for a quarter of the price. So he says, the reason that people are telling you that you can build a PC for 1/4 the price is because they're looking out for you. It's about spreading awareness. So Avocado, first off, thank you very much for your reply. And I wish I could agree with you, but I don't think that's the case most of the time. Seemingly, the majority of the comments have this underlying tone of, you know what, you're such an idiot, you're just a dumb Apple user, you're an Apple sheep, I am so much smarter than you, I can build my own PC, and it would be so much better than anything you can do, idiot! That's how I interpret a lot of those comments. Sorry if you're one of those people. And as Up All Night replied, just beneath that, because no Apple owner has ever heard that before. And I agree. I think every Apple user, or let me reiterate or focus in. I think every person who's uploading videos about Apple computers on the internet has heard that about 100 times before. So I agree with Up All Night. I wish I believed you. I wish I believed what you were saying was true, because that would be a very nice environment to be on the internet. Just people trying to help you out. Hey man, if you want the same performance, you could go ahead and go with this route and you get the same performance, but some people like the ecosystem of Mac, all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much. Regardless, I wasn't attacking you. I was attacking the people who are that condescending. Okay. Next comment comes from The Red Thing. I love your videos. And what do you think on the microphone Blue Yeti? And this video is so helpful. So I think the Yeti is a perfectly fine microphone. It's perfectly fine. It does pretty well for the price, but I just think a lot of people misuse it. So what I mean by that, I see a lot of people and hear a lot of people where they get the Blue Yeti, they set it up 2 feet away from them, they put it on omnidirectional mode, it's on the same desk as your mechanical keyboard and your clicky mouse, and you got a fan on in the background, and you just don't set it up in an optimized room most of the time. Not you. I'm not saying you. A lot of people that I've heard use the Blue Yeti, set it up like that. Also, not a treated room. So if you use the Blue Yeti in a proper environment with decent treatment to your room, you set it up on a boom arm so it's not on your desk, you get it closer to your mouth, you use it on cardioid mode, I think it could sound perfectly fine, and it's a good deal if you do set it up like that. But like I said, if you are going to set it up, untreated room, 2 feet away from you, omnidirectional mode, keyboard, mouse, whatever, just screaming across the room, going to be a terrible microphone. Just like pretty much any microphone would be terrible in that use case. So I don't think it's the microphone's fault. I think it's the user's fault for setting it up wrong. So thank you very much for that, The Red Thing. Appreciate you. Bryster51 is the next comment. He says, get rid of your smartphone. It plus apps tracks you 100% of the time, even just using cell tower triangulation. Then you may be 40% safer from tracking. LOL. So precisely. I have yelled about this probably a couple of episodes ago about even if you don't have any Wi-Fi or anything turned on, I think even if you have cellular turned off, they still need to know where your phone is in case you turn that back on. And it is very easy for them to locate you because they can just go ahead and determine your exact location based on your proximity to multiple cell phone towers. So I think you are exactly right. If you do want to go ahead and avoid any kind of tracking, just get rid of any kind of cell phone, get rid of your internet, go live in a cabin in the woods that you squat in because you don't want your name on the lease and you don't want your name on the mortgage or anything. So it is inescapable, the tracking environment, the big brother state that we're living in. We're stuck. Next comment comes from Rod. He says, if you search any newsy topic now, you only get mainstream media sources, NBC, ABC, Fox, Vox, etc., all which are so unbiased. It's over, Johnny. The democratization of the internet with social media and user-created content is over. So, Rod, I don't fully agree with you there. I am sure that you're right that when you search any newsy topic, it is just mainstream media being pushed to you. But I think that we still have a platform and we still have a place to share our thoughts and our videos and everything like that. But the corporations have come in. There's no denying that. The big corporations have realized the value that is in the internet, and they are trying to take over. But I think that until people aren't able to make a blog, upload a video anywhere, or even own a website to share their own ideas and their thoughts, I think the internet is still a free place for user-created content. I don't think it's over. I think it's just changing. The landscape is changing. And until everybody... The people come out and say, or corporations come out and say, you can't own a website, you can't own a blog, you can't upload videos, you can't own your own website. I think at that point, then the internet would truly be dead and it would just be another television. So that's my take on it. I do understand why you're saying that, but I think that's not necessarily short-sighted, but it's just not taking into respect to the fact that there's more than just YouTube and the big Facebooks and all that stuff. There's more places to upload content than just the big two. And the last comment, or I guess this would be tweet, comes from Josh Liston. Josh C. Liston, podcaster extraordinaire. What is it? Under the Bubble? On the Bubble? I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of his podcast. But he says, that moment when @Bandrew should have said, I'll happily pay $6,700 to avoid Windows 10. I think you're exactly right. I have Windows 10 and I hate it. I do not have a good time using it. It is somewhat nightmarish to use, but you know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was, and I do 100% prefer Mac over Windows 10. I wouldn't pay $6,700 to avoid Windows 10, but I get the point, and that tweet definitely made me laugh. So that is it for what you had to say. Now let's jump to my favorite part of the podcast, the Ask Bandrew segment. Okay, guys, reminder, if you got any questions, I shouldn't be doing that. I think that's considered rude in certain countries. If you can't point at people in certain countries. So if anybody's just listening, I am bowing down to the camera. If you have any questions, go ahead and send them to askbandrew@gmail.com, and I may answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. And the first email comes from Angry Ducky. He says, I've heard that there is an event called Sunshine Summit 2018. Someone named Heather is holding it for a couple of days. I've heard that the BSP once took part in the Sunshine Summit, but not this time somehow. Will the BSP be on the Summit 2018, and why not? Angry Ducky. P.S. You can even use the SM7B there. Wink. So, Angry Ducky, enough with the SM7B memes, okay? Your name's not Larko. Now I'm just making Discord jokes that nobody's gonna get. The people in Discord will get it, but thank you very much for the question. And if anybody's into Let's Plays, Angry Ducky makes some awesome videos that I definitely enjoy watching, and his accent is awesome. So, I guess now is the perfect time to go ahead and announce this. I will be on the Summit 2018. I'm very happy about that. I am so excited about this one. I'm going to be on Friday, August 17th at 9 p.m. EDT. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. I think it's 1 p.m. Saturday, New Zealand time. But for everybody in the U.S., 9 p.m. EST or EDT, whatever the heck the the acronym is. And you can find out more, www.sunshineandpowercuts.com. Very excited to be on that. Heather, thank you for asking me to be on. Cannot wait. Gonna be so much fun. Awesome. Okay. And the next question comes from Alan from Sound Speeds. He says, when you record your podcast, do you present it as if it were live, or do you record segments as needed, then edit the best takes into the finished show? If not in one take, how long do you spend recording? So Alan, thank you very much, Mr. Sound Speeds. Very much appreciate you. This is going to be a fun one, considering how poor I did last week, especially since the camera didn't want to work. You see all the edit points. You saw all of them. Normally, I can hide them pretty well. Hopefully this week I can hide them. So the final product I have, like the final podcast episode, is always one take. I won't go ahead and I will stumble over my words and start a story over again. This is the second time I've read your email because I screwed up the first time so bad, but I don't go back and record certain segments. I don't say, oh, this just happened, I'm going to record a segment here. Oh, this just happened, I'm going to record a segment here. I just do it in a single take, and then if I stumble over my words, I'll edit the retake of that segment where I wasted 30 seconds reading your email and then screwed it up so bad that I just started over rather than trying to find where I could edit back in. So that's it there. So in terms of how long it takes to film the actual podcast, it varies quite significantly from week to week. There's been times where I've gotten 2 hours of sleep where I try to record and I just can't do it. So I'll restart the recording 10 times. I think the worst was, I think I restarted the podcast recording 20 times or something. And by 5 p.m., I was just saying, screw this. I don't even care. I somehow stumbled through it though, but I think I spent 12 or 14 hours that day trying to record the podcast and editing it and doing all that stuff. But then on the other hand, there's days where I just sit down and on the first take, I get it right and I don't have to do any edits. Although in pretty much every single episode, there is at least one edit, and that is around 30 minutes because my DSLR has a 30-minute recording timer. So I do always have to edit there, and I'll just chop those points together. And I think this episode, there is quite significant edits because, again, having a rough day. So let me elaborate on why there are certain days why I record the podcast or start over and over again, because I think it's really important here. So some people may think it's dumb and a waste of my time to do that. And guess what? They're probably right. It is a waste of my time likely to go ahead and restart a recording 10 times. But the reasoning behind that is I have the mindset that I should at least try to make every episode the best I possibly can, because any episode could be somebody's first episode of my podcast. So if I were to have a terribly off day and the podcast just stunk, I am sure that the people that already listen to or watch the podcast would be okay with it. They know me. They'd be like, oh, it's okay. Bandrew had an off day, whatever. He'll be back next week. But if that was somebody's first experience with the podcast, they may view that and say, ooh, this guy sucks. I'm never going to watch this again. So although it may initially be a waste of my time, I like to try at least to make every episode as good as I possibly can. And there's been times where I've recorded reviews 2 or 3 times because I ended up not happy with them. And I thought, well, if this is the first review of mine that somebody sees, I don't want that to be the case. So I'm not going to release this. I'm going to stay up until 1 a.m. fixing it and re-recording it because I want somebody to have a good impression of me with my first video that they see. So that's my entire mentality here. Now, I will admit, I have released some I've released some stinkers. Some episodes have been very rough, and I would be sad if that was somebody's first experience, but you know what? With 120 something episodes, they're not all gonna be winners, just like Amazon Basics microphones. They can't all be winners. So you know what? I may lose some audience because they see one of the bad episodes, but I need to keep some semblance of sanity going. So to wrap up the answer, to complete a single episode of this podcast, it ranges normally like 7-8 hours to do everything. So I'll spend 2 to 4 hours doing researching and writing up the outline, which can be quite time consuming and maddening, going through all the news stories. I go through 3 publications, every single post that they have for the last week in my RSS catcher reader thingy. Then I'll spend 1 to 2 hours recording. I think right now we are at 49 minutes for this episode. So you'll see where we are in the actual final product, and you'll see how much I edited out. That's a little peek behind the curtains. 49 minutes so far, and I recorded 5 minutes before this, and then I started over. So not too bad today. So 1 to 2 hours there, and then 2 to 3 hours editing, writing the show notes, doing some social media posting, all that stuff. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. So thank you again, Alan, host of the SoundSpeeds YouTube channel. That was a fun question for me to answer, and kind of sad realizing how much time I spent on this podcast. My entire Sunday just disappears when I work on this. But you know what? I enjoy it. It's a way for me to stay on top of the news, and that's where the fun is. So thank you again, Alan. Last email comes from Loudy. Sorry, I needed to make sure I was saying the right name. He says, "Greetings, Andrew with a B. I've been subbed to Podcastage for some time now. I believe I found you while researching the Samson G-Track Pro, and now I've been listening to your podcast to and from work every day. I have 2 questions for you. What new desk did you switch to? I heard you mention that it's wider than your last, and I'm not sure if this has been asked before, but what is your favorite X-Files episode and why? Keep up the wonderful content, my man. Your fan, Loudy." Loudy, thank you very much, and I love that it was sent from an iPhone. I love that little note at the bottom of emails. I love when I see that. It's like, fellow Apple sheep, appreciate you. So let's get into this. First up, what new desk did I switch to? This is going to be a mouthful, and I'm going to include a picture on the screen, and I will include an affiliate link in the description in case you want to pick it up. It is, let me see where, the Zinus Modern Studio Collection Soho Dining Table Office Desk Computer Desk Table Only Brown. It's a mouthful. It's a little bit wobblier than I would like, so I had to buy a different camera stand that was a little bit more stable, but all in all, having a 48-inch wide desk coming from a 40-inch is, it's life-changing. I can fit both, I could fit my iMac and an additional monitor on here without any issues. It's not falling off the side. I absolutely love it. I got all my peripherals attached with boom arms. It's a beautiful thing. I'm loving the desk, and it's only like $88. I couldn't argue. This is perfect for the price. If it was any better, I would think that I was stealing from somebody. Now I sound like a salesman. Any better and it'd be a crime. God, I hate myself. The second question, favorite X-Files episode. I'll give you a couple of standardized answers that every X-Files fan has. Clive Bruckman's Final Repose, Jose Chung's From Outer Space. That second one, oh my God, it's so good. It's so meta and so self-aware, but I'm not going to go further into that one. Jose Chung's From Outer Space. And then from the more recent seasons, not many people bring those up. I'm going to say the Darren Morgan episode from season 10. Mulder and Scully meet the Weremonster. I loved that episode. And what's his name? The Kiwi. Gosh, I can't remember his name. I am so sorry. Rhys Darby. Such a great actor in that. And that episode is hilarious. I loved it. And that would be in my top 10 probably, because almost every Darren Morgan episode is. But I went ahead and picked something that's a little bit different, a little bit less loved, not frequently in top 10. And that would be Sleepless. Now, I think this is probably going to be my favorite, mainly because Tony Todd's performance is insane. It's got this kind of Manchurian Candidate kind of plot, I guess. And, oh God, it's just so good. It's so well done. I love the Vietnam conspiracies. This ties that in there. The Manchurian Candidate, like I said, and Tony Todd. And just everything about it. I loved it so much. And not the most popular one, but all in all, I think that's the one that I go back to the most. And I just think it's such a fascinating story. And maybe the reason that I like it so much is I could see something like that actually happening, where any kind of government military, any country, I'm not saying the US, but any country in the world, I could see them saying, you know what we could do to gain an edge over other countries? Let's try to make our soldiers not have to sleep. And then what kind of, I guess, downsides to that would it have? What kind of mental breaks would it lead to? What kind of other effects would it have on the test subject? I loved that episode so much. So I'm going to go ahead and go with that one just to be a little bit different. But if you watch any Darren Morgan episodes, he's the writer of the episode, you're going to be winning. Except I think Tesos dos Bichos, that episode kind of stunk. That was with cats or rats or something. I don't even know. It was not a good episode. So that's going to wrap it up for today. I think we went a little bit long, but you know what? We're going to cut the heck out of this episode because I screwed up so much. I'll give you a last little insight. 54 minutes right now on my time code. Let's see where we are in the final product. I will see you all next week again. Got any questions? AskBandrew@gmail.com. Thank you again for 70,000 subs. Thank you all for listening to the podcast and watching it. I'll see you next week. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.